Jokebusters with your hosts Sarah Fraser and Bart DeLauro.
So for our first episode, we watched a couple of Doug Kenny related movies. The man who changed comedy forever, according to his biopic. And I'm not a big fan of the biopic.
You didn't
form.
Enjoy it? Or?
I didn't like it very much. No, I'm a fan of David Wayne, the director of Futile and Stupid Gesture.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I call it Gesture, but that's just my homage to My Hot American Summer. But
and a gurnal. Yeah, with the gurnal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't too fond of it. I thought it was easy to watch, although as it progressed, I got less and less interested.
It could have cut out like the food fights and still been pretty funny, but I didn't really read much about it beforehand, so I was like constantly getting delighted. Like every 2 minutes, someone else would show up, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's great! Oh, Martin Mull! Oh." Until Emmy Rossum came in, and she has like negative charm. So you put her in anything, she takes away like 20 charm points.
But that was a character that they actually decided to include a character that was female in the movie, which was kind of unusual.
Which is nice, but this is a biopic about comedy. We all know women are not funny. Yeah,
it's true.
So, but besides her, but I really really liked thinking of McHale, just like channeling everything, years of Community, working with Chevy Chase, and
did they actually hate each other? Or is it just sort of assumed that if you work with Chevy Chase, you're going to end up hating him?
I think that's kind of the assumption. But I don't know, this movie actually kind of turned my opinion around on him. I was like, Chevy Chase is a pretty good friend. And I don't know if we should back up, but this was a biopic done by David Wayne about Doug Kenny, who was one of the founders of the National Lampoon, with his best friend, who's
Henry
Beard.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Who was played by
Domhnall Gleeson, and it took me like 15 minutes. I know that guy. And then I figured it out.
I have like a ginger radar. Like I'll know
even with a black wig, you know that he's a ginger deep down.
But this sort of he passed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't get that sort
and
of
his American accent was really good.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was really great.
And I don't really like him that much in general.
You didn't like him in Star Wars? You didn't think he was sort of like...
He's a good Nazi.
He was a secret hero to that movie, maybe a little? No?
He's... I liked him in Ex Machina. I don't know what I have against Domhnall Gleeson. Maybe it's the whole ginger thing. Maybe that's what I have against him.
Yeah.
I don't like his face, I think. I think it's as simple as that.
He does have kind of a hard face. Like, maybe if he put some weight on, he'll look more like his dad.
I like his dad.
Yeah.
Brendan Gleeson is a force.
It's pretty great. But I know I liked him in this. He kind of did his job. Definitely. And, like John McHale. Who else? Who else am I missing? Oh, the mayor from Buffy. Playing.
Yeah, playing. Yeah, Clark Kent's mom was his mom.
Right.
So it's the Faith's dad and sort of stand-in dad. And Superman's mom were Doug Kenny's parents.
This was a bonanza for CW early aughts TV stars. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had our Seth Green in there playing Christopher Guest.
That's right, I forgot about Seth Green.
The casting, although like not physically, and they definitely like they break the fourth wall and like they'll talk about how they don't look like them, but it's really fun. Yeah, I thought that was really fun seeing. The different impressions.
The Little Britain guy, Matt. What's his name?
Matt Lucas.
Yeah, Matt. I'm not a big fan of Little Britain or Matt Lucas, but he had hair in this.
He did have hair in this. He was a bit of a. He was one of the few people I wasn't really familiar with the Lemmings, but I was a huge like this era fan, like that beginning years of Saturday Night Live, all the people that spawned, that P.J. O'Rourke. I even read all of his like neocon books at the time, and yeah, he kind of.
And Michael O'Donoghue, I kind of followed him a little bit, just because he seemed like kind of a gonzo kind of guy that wasn't quite as crazy as
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson, yeah.
And that was kind of great. Yeah, it was like that sort of alternative comedy field. And, you know, this day and age, it's just really nice to see a movie about, against all odds, Ivy League educated white man just succeeding. Like, that was really nice, I think.
At this point, let me break into what I kind of am hoping this podcast will be a little bit, and talk about there are a couple of times in this movie where it points out the fact that there are no black people involved in the story, and it's clearly the makers are embarrassed that they can't include any POCs in this movie. Mm-hmm. So there are two jokes referencing the fact, and I hated those jokes. I don't think it's funny, but how do you deal with something like that?
Yeah, you definitely are like a victim of your era. And, you know, they were privileged white dudes who were making really subversive comedy. In a way, they were sort of like the Ties, from Caddyshack. Here was someone who you have to know what the rules of society are in order to break them. And I think they kind of did a good job as sort of like a backdoor, let's get this kind of subversion, let's get these, alternative comedy in and try to make it mainstream, which, that has a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that, and it's sort of Caddyshack works with that dynamic too. It's like you've got you've got all sorts of rich scumbags in that movie, and you have to decide which rich scumbag to side with.
Slobs versus snobs.
Yeah, but
classic. Yeah.
But I mean, but you've got these like Rodney Dangerfield in that movie is white rich scumbag.
Yeah.
Who happen who you're supposed to side with somehow, but he's still
pretty scummy, but like in a fun way. And I was kind of thinking, as like a defensive measure, what if we thought of Trump as a Rodney Dangerfield character? Would we like him more? It's just someone who just kind of said like, "Oh, I'm gonna grab the pussy. I don't get no respect." Like, has like our present time soured that? Like, can we not enjoy some guy just going in and making people clutch their pearls? Like,
except, in all honesty, Donald Trump to me is much more of a Ted Knight type character.
He's like the manners of Al Sverzik. I want to call it like, with the just graciousness of a Ted Knight and
the lovability of a Ted Knight.
Right. And I guess during the movie, Ted Knight hated all the young people in there. He hated like Rodney. Well, not that Rodney. He used it. He used it. Yeah. He used it. But I guess there was definitely like that line in the sand. He was not partying with all of them on the set, which is kind of fun.
And I did exactly what I didn't want to do, and started talking about Caddyshack in the middle of futile and stupid gesture. So maybe we should backtrack a little bit
to that. Well, and of course, this is sort of the making of that whole era of comedy. It starts off, they go right out of Harvard, they're at the Harvard Lampoon, and they start the National Lampoon magazine. And I think Matt Besser has a great role. He's sort of in the magazine publishing, and he's kind of their authority figure that they... From
Upright Citizens Brigade.
Right, he's great.
I can never... No, Matt Walsh.
No, this was Matt Besser, I think. Matt Walsh is the one with like the kind of curly hair.
Matt Walsh was the balding one who was the Weight Watchers magazine that actually published... Wait, who's Matt Besser?
Is it Matt Besser? Isn't the redheaded one that... Matt Besser's... It was this guy named Matt who was a comedy legend. Definitely played,
Matt... I can't even look it up on my phone because we're recording.
Yeah, we'll just say that Matt.
I know the name
from Upright Citizens. I know.
Are there two Matts in Upright Citizens Brigade?
I think Matt Besser and Matt
Walsh.
Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
A few other people. But that's
Matt Walsh is definitely the publisher the guy who ends up publishing National
Okay,
Lampoon.
no, I'm going to take your word for that. I think you're much better at that stuff. I just kind of get a soul catching. I know them by their auras and not exactly their names or their resume. So anyway,
Thomas Lennon was great as O'Donoghue.
he was great. He definitely just relished. You could just tell him every word that he spat out in that movie. He was enjoying himself, and it was like really fun to watch.
So here, how many members of the state do we have involved in this movie? We've got David Wayne as the director, but not the writer.
Yep. Carrie Kenny Silver has a small cameo.
Right, and I missed her.
Yeah, she was working for the Ed Sullivan Show, and she was the one that told him that his jokes were too offensive. Told Matt Lucas.
Oh, I didn't recognize her. I wasn't looking for her because I didn't look at the credits beforehand, and I didn't recognize her.
I was looking for her because I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if Carrie Kenny is somehow related to Doug Kenny, but
right.
as we know, it was just.
Is she?
That. No, actually, her dad is actually kind of famous too. He did like a voice on like Ines. He was sort of like a comedy writer, and he's sort of known kind of that pre-era, but wasn't related anyway.
And who's the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, who's on Mr. Show?
Oh, yeah.
Thomas Kenny?
I think so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so let's do our state count. We have...
Joe Latrulio.
Oh, yeah, Joe Latrulio was great. He was one of the producers behind Animal House.
Mm-hmm.
We had our great Carrie Kenny Silver. We had our David Wayne, who I don't think was in...
His voice, you hear, he's the narrator, kind of, or, the off-screen interviewer.
And I'm not sure if we had anyone else there. I was
and Thomas Lennon.
Thomas Lennon.
But I think that's it.
So it's a pretty good,
it's not even half,
guys.
Though.
Yeah, but it's hard getting all those guys in one room. They're just...
They're so busy these days.
Yeah.
They're so in demand.
Right.
Although Thomas Lennon and what's the other guy? The Sid Vicious from the state. He had
Showalter?
No,
Carl.
he's on Reno 911. The mustache guy.
Yeah.
We really should have these fact sheets in front of us.
And we'll all fix it in post. We'll have one of our interns go in and just dub it over and have the correct name, and we'll look really smart.
Well, that guy who I never liked on the state very much, and Thomas Lennon wrote like all the Night at the Museum movies and a bunch of crappy sort of
Herbie
kids.
the Lug Bug. Yeah, they made a lot of money off a lot of crap, and God love them.
Mm-hmm.
I just make your money where you can.
Mm-hmm. I actually never watched that much Reno 911, but I always enjoyed Dangle.
I was a big fan, and Dangle was great. I loved how they built up. I would like to see. I don't know. I compare it to a Trailer Park Boys. If you like that kind of ensemble improv, they create a world and they have kind of their rules for it. But no, I think it's great.
Were you watched every episode?
I think I watched every episode, and I might have missed the last couple of years, but I was a fan, definitely.
That's maybe why I didn't catch Carrie Kenny. I just haven't seen her lately.
She was great in that. I just rewatched Role Models, and she was in that.
Oh yeah, I remember she's in Wanderlust as well.
Yeah, and that had a lot of the cast, but So no, I think there wouldn't be, it sounds like it's rambling, but really, there wouldn't be a state if it wasn't for the National Lampoon gang. I mean, they really brought that, they kind of showed us a way. Was Second City before? I feel like Second City also
you read the Saturday Night Live book. How does Second City tie into to Saturday Night Live? I mean, I know that SCTV had its own show, and then they pulled Martin Short from that, but that was much later in the
it became like a feeder, sort of like an audition. They got a lot of people.
Dan Aykroyd was from Second City.
Dan Aykroyd, John Candy.
John Candy was never on Saturday Night Live, though.
Yeah, but he was in Second City in that kind of group, wasn't he? No, he wasn't. You're right. You're totally right.
I'm just the connection between them. There's definitely some kind of connection, and I had no idea that all of those guys did the National Lampoon radio show, like John Belushi and Chevy Chase and
Bill Murray, Gilda Radner, and they make that concession. There are a lot of interesting people in this biopic. We don't have room for all of them. I think that was kind of smart. Though they could have, like I said, cut out a few things and maybe had some room.
I did see John Hughes' name when they said we're listing all the people they couldn't mention, but I didn't A lot of the names didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah. And I think it was a lot. Like, I remember reading Cinderella's Story years ago by Bill Murray.
That's his golfing book.
That's
but what's that book about?
It's just basically, I mean, really not a lot. It's just sort of like getting high with Bill Murray and having him tell you a story about golfing and golfing with Hunter S. Thompson and that era. But, it was, he says that Caddyshack was like a very personal film. It was him and his brother based on their life. And they don't touch as much in the biopic with Doug Kenny, writing this, but they do show in the movie, Doug Kenny's family are pretty terrible to him. Like, was he a dark comic genius and his parents didn't love him because of it, or did he become a dark comic genius because his parents didn't love him?
Well, like in the movie, they just kind of break down along liberals versus conservatives sort of thing, which is probably more complicated than that, but...
Oh, no. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but he's really trying to get his father's approval. His father was a tennis pro at a country club, and, they're writing the Caddyshack. He, he really wanted to kind of get back at the people who, like, treated his dad like crap, and, he wanted to sort of, not get back, but kind of, like, showcase that, and maybe get a little glimmer of his dad approval. And
I didn't really make that connection when I was watching the movie, but that's totally what that was all about, wasn't it?
I don't know, maybe. But I would I think, and then...
You're just showing off. You're trying to dig deeper.
I'm trying to dig deeper. I mean, really, sometimes there's no there. I mean, he could have... but yeah, so he had Doug Kenny, enormous success. They published a lot of books. He did the Board of the Ring book was something he published.
I never saw that. I heard about the yearbook. I never looked at it. Have you ever seen the National Lampoon?
I've seen part of it in like books about, like I've seen clips of it, but I know, in full disclosure, I wasn't a big Animal House fan. I really think it was something, Caddyshack was my movie. I really, really liked all the, as a kid, all the vacation movies. Never really. Van
I always
Wilder,
liked one
you're
and
a huge
two.
Van Wilder fan, isn't that?
I'm not sure I ever saw Van Wilder.
It's
And what does it mean to be a National Lampoon movie these days? Is there a magazine to go along with it anymore? Or?
I don't think it means a lot. I think maybe it's like buying the rights. Like I really don't think it has any name attached to it. I don't know if it has any sort of website. And for all I know, they could be huge. It could be like the Tyler Perry, like mogul. They have their own studio.
We're just not running in those circles, so we don't know about it.
But I feel like it doesn't really mean a lot anymore. But at one time that was your stamp of approval. You knew this was going to be great.
Well, even Vacation.
Yeah.
Written by John Hughes.
Oh right.
So I guess there's a National Lampoon connection there, but Doug Kenny obviously had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Who was National Lampoon when Vacation, the first Vacation movie, came out?
Well, and it seemed from the biopic that kind of the original group that really got it started, kind of got gutted by Saturday Night Live. Like they all went over to do that, and of course they went on to like enormous success. And Harry Beard like left it after 5 years, and it was kind of on Doug Kenny's shoulders. And creative mind, not much of a delegator or someone that can really handle like a media, a whole slate of media.
Or Henry.
Doug.
Yeah.
Because they had a radio show, they had the magazine, they had the books, and they had the movies.
Well, he was just portrayed as restless, and then once the cocaine happened, there was the restlessness just kind of got out of control.
And I think that may be something too, like so much cocaine in those years, so much. Like Saturday Night Live wouldn't have run without it. I think that's sort of like the type of humor. Like I wonder if they had spent a couple of days writing without cocaine, if they would have had, a little bit tighter stuff, or not had anything at all. But
yeah, one thing you can say about Caddyshack is it's not tight.
No.
It's a mess. I mean, you've got all these amazingly funny people being really funny, and then otherwise that movie is just a total mess. Yeah. But one thing I learned from Futile and Stupid Gesture is the first cut was 4 hours long, which made so much sense when I watched that movie after knowing that.
Yeah.
Because the scene where where Ty and Carl, or Ty wants to play through Carl's shack.
Yeah,
and
that
they
had to be put in. That was like
that was
studio
that was
directed.
so well. It was just so not connected to anything else in that movie,
Yeah.
and I could see if you have a 4-hour cut, maybe they could have worked that in a little better. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it's just really sloppy writing.
Yeah, it was a huge mess, and it kind of I kind of want to get to the end of Futile Gesture, and then we'll fin that. No, it's good.
I thought I'd be keeping you on point, but you seem to be keeping me on point.
Got it going. But yeah, no, I think that we kind of learned how they made it, and under duress, I think they said they could make it for $2 million. They had a huge hit in Animal House, and they were hoping to like recreate that. And what other movies were coming out that year? I mean,
in 78 when Animal House came out, or 80 when
80,
Caddyshack?
I think 80. Like,
80.
what were they up against?
Airplane, which is in the movie.
In the movie, right?
Where that's sort of basically Airplane killed Doug Kenny is the thesis that that movie was going with.
Yeah, I could see that. I was never a big Airplane fan. I mean, I
love
can quote
Airplane
it
so much more than Caddyshack. Airplane meant so much to me, and all those Abrams Zucker movies were crucial to me. That was way more my sensibility than Caddyshack or any of these 80s sex comedies that were inspired by National Lampoon inspired.
I can see that. I think I watched all the Naked Guns. I watched
Top Secret?
Top Secret, yeah. No, I love some Top Secret. I think that I'd like to analyze. I haven't seen that though.
Maybe that'll be the next one when we'll talk about the Zucker brothers, and Top Secret will be like our primary focus.
Yeah, that would be a great one for that. But yeah, that same
unless we want to do Val Kilmer comedies and go with Real Genius and Top Secret, because Real
Genius would be great. I also, my favorite comedy by him would be The Saint.
Oh yeah,
it's great. It's to go back into Chevy Chase. It's sort of like
a lot of funny mustaches.
Yeah, it's like him doing Fletch. And, he does a great Africana accent. Would you like some coffee or something? I'm
getting off topic again. I'm sorry. It's my,
we're gonna get
my
back
fault.
On. It's like we're just overly caffeinated, and I want to see what else.
David Wayne, comic genius. Not too much of his touch evident in this movie. I would say he didn't write it. There's maybe that's why some of the casting is clearly David Wayne connected, but I didn't feel that much David Wayne from this. There wasn't. It was trying to tell a story, and I think that's where David Wayne. That's a weakness of his, maybe.
May have been too in awe of the material and not wanting to mess it up. They do a great narrative device where they introduce Martin Mull as Doug Kenny and kind of asking him through it. They don't really follow through with that device. Has a very
comes back when they need it.
Yeah, it comes back when they need it. But I mean, I think it's an interesting. But you never. Oh, we haven't even talked about Will Forte.
He's great.
He's great.
He's really great. Yeah.
He does. But you also don't really. You're definitely kept at arm's length from Doug Kenny. You kind of. I think Doug Kenny might have been kind of exhausting to be around. I just get that kind of feeling.
It conveyed that pretty well. I would say. Nobody liked him that much.
Yeah.
Even Henry was, liked working with him and liked what he accomplished with Doug, but you never felt like they were.
Yeah.
They loved each other, but didn't necessarily like each other very much.
Yeah, I could, and I think, it was sort of definitely a partnership under duress. But I don't know, I think there's some sweet moments with him and Chevy. I thought
that's true,
yeah.
Although that was all coke-fueled.
Coke-fueled, but still sweet. It kind of made me rethink. I'm like, Chevy Chase before he turned into kind of a jerk. Might have been a pretty nice friend every once in a while. And
I do have that joke where Chevy's looking for some snacks and he finds the bowl of cocaine. I had that as one of the jokes that bombed. I did not think that was funny.
really, I cackled at that. I let out like a hoo.
I think that's why I picked out that particular moment, because I thought that would be one that, I bet Sarah kind of liked that. And
I know that instinct. I think I've done something similar, but that, just kind of throwing a plate of food in the air and just, helping yourself to whatever illicit substance available. Not anymore.
The movie does devolve into a lot of cocaine-fueled wackiness.
Yeah.
And none of that really worked for me that much, although I did like the disaster that his life turned into because of it.
It was fun. It was really fun to see someone take so much potential and just sort of slam it to the ground. He could have used a life coach, I think, but he had a lot of good output. I mean, if he'd had a little more focus, the stuff that he could have kind of gotten out. Famously, he really was not happy with Caddyshack. He didn't really...
You knew that before watching the movie.
I did. I didn't... I'd heard about that. And actually watching the biopic, it kind of made me feel guilty about liking Caddyshack. I'm like, oh, how could something that just depressed one of the makers so much, bring me so much joy like that?
Well, the movie is... Should we transition into Caddyshack at this point?
Yeah, I think we put that to rest. Should we say how Doug Kenny met his end?
No, we'll leave that.
Oh, okay.
Because that's sort of
he may not
the
have
whole Martin Mull thing in there is sort of a red herring to sort of anybody who doesn't know Doug Kenny's story would be put off the trail of what happened to him, and so let's leave that a mystery for anybody who might watch this. Not great movie, but if you're interested, very watchable, and if you're interested in National Lampoon, worth watching.
Would set your expectations a little lower. I think that,
and it has a lot of witty lines too. It actually Doug Kenny came off as a funnier person in that movie than I feel like he demonstrates in the movies that he's written.
Yeah,
I think it's just filled with a lot of great one-liners and. That are wittier than anything in Animal House or Caddyshack. Really.
Yeah. One of them I actually wrote one down, and I want to go to Caddyshack. These are some of the happiest days I've ever ignored, and that kind of killed me a little. I was like, this guy. But he came off muut better than I would have thought.
And a lot of that thanks to Will Forte. He put a lot of pathos in that. Well, before we move off of that, can we talk about what's the Last Man on Earth show he does?
Oh yeah, The Last Man on Earth.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
It's great. It's great, but I also I run out of a little patience. His kind of shtick is that he is horrible to do. The cast is great. It's worth it. Just watch the pilot, and it's great. I kind of wished it was all like the pilot, but it's worth it. They have some great cameos.
But do you get what's her name? I think it was the Flight of the Conchords.
Kristen Schaal.
Yeah, is she in the first episode?
Second or third. It becomes an ensemble cast. Not to ruin the whole. He's not the Last Man Earth, and he does a lot of the kind of Doug Kenny. He can be very annoying, but then he beats into the ground where it's funny again. I think there's one episode where it's him and what's his name? He sings the song from Once, Falling Slowly 8 times in a row, and it's really hard to watch, but then it becomes funny again. So it's a lot of that kind of. He does a lot of the repetitive comedy and where it goes around and becomes
which amuses the hell out of me. When I showed you that clip from They Came Together before we started recording, you seemed less amused than I was. You're not as into the beating and joking to
I do like it, but the thing is, I'm just a little bit smarter, so I it takes me less time. I get it by the third time. I'd be like, oh, that's really funny. They're going to do this 8 more times. I've already internal laugh, and I'm gone on to the next.
Right.
Not smarter, just faster, I guess.
Right.
The way my brain works with comedy. So I already skipped ahead, and I'm laughing, and I'm thinking about the next joke. But,
I just like to relax and enjoy myself and laugh at the comedy. I'm not always just, analyzing everything about it like you are.
Well, I like to suck the joy out of everything. That's kind of my...
Suck the joy out of everything.
That could be fun. That could be the name of the podcast. Just beat that comedy horse to death and make it into some glue. Speaking of which, I think I've used that line at a Longhorn Steakhouse of Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack. Like, look at this meat. Look, you can see where the jockey hit it in the side. I think.
The biopic, it mentions the Monty Python influence on Doug Kenny, and I noticed it in Caddyshack with the chef in that scene is totally John Cleese from
Basil Fawlty.
Basil Fawlty, but there's also a Monty Python sketch where he's the angry, crazy chef who wants to,
French accent.
and he's wielding that meat cleaver in the same way. So that's definitely. It felt more like homage than ripping Monty Python off, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, no, and I can definitely see the influence on that group with that. And Monty Python, they were a bunch of like advertising execs that went into comedy. I mean, they really, I could see where they were like the spiritual godfathers of maybe National Lampoons.
Although the absurd humor of Monty Python, I feel like got translated into the Abraham Zucker stuff more than, like, I see that stamp on their stuff more than I see it on the National Lampoon stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, they don't have, though we were talking about the one scene with Chevy Chase and Bill Murray that appears in the movie. And it was under duress because they realized, like, their two biggest stars were never in the same scene. The movie was that much of a mess. Like, I think...
So you know the story behind that scene, and okay.
Right. Yeah, do you want me to go
okay, we're firmly in the Caddyshack half of this episode.
We're done with the Doug Kenny thing.
Okay, I might bring it back because I can't stay on point, but
either can I, and I'm fully expecting us to, create a boner with that and go back, but the scene with Bill Murray and Chevy Chase, it's completely absurd. These are two people working absurd, Chevy Chase wants to just play through in this hut. Bill Murray is, offering him the grass that he made. They're both in their own universe. I would have liked to see them collaborate more.
Is that a classic scene? Do people think of that scene as like one of the classic scenes from Caddyshack, or is it just kind of a sore thumb, like it felt like to me when I watched it a couple days ago?
Full disclosure, I think I talked about this, but the way I watched this movie, and I watched it so many times as a kid, it was on VHS, it was taped off TV, like circa 1987, 89. I did not know about the Baby Ruth scene. There was a lot of flip you. None of the sex scenes were in it. It was like a Mormon rebroadcasting. Like, I had a very sanitized version, but I watched it so much. So it wasn't till like
you can't mention Caddyshack without me saying duty. I can't believe that wasn't even part of your experience.
I didn't live in that universe. Like, I lived in an alternative universe where, like, I would hear jokes about it, like, oh, the Baby Ruth in the pool, and like I knew of it, but I had never experienced it until like I watched it maybe 10, 12 years ago and watched it uncut without the Michael J. Fox selling Pepsi in between. Yeah.
And then he set his hair on fire shortly after.
Did he? I don't know.
That was Michael Jackson.
That was Michael Jackson, right?
I was older when that happened, so that's more of a reference point for me.
What's a landline?
And you probably grass being grass in that Bill Murray Chevy chasing, yeah.
Oh no, I was heavily into marijuana when I was like 6 or 7, so I mean I knew that, or I knew the reference. I think I knew the reference. I knew grass was.
So they didn't. I mean, I guess. I mean, I guess there are ways that they could have kept that into the TV broadcast version of that without you necessarily knowing it was about drugs.
I think that whole scene was cut out.
Oh, the whole scene.
Or maybe like my brain just cut it out because it just didn't. It wasn't a good scene. Had a lot of potential, but it was definitely shoehorned in there. Didn't have to. But they had that absurdity. Like, I would have liked to see maybe if they had thought about a scene and written it and then practiced it and acted it out and shot it in a timely manner and then edited it. I think that would have been a good scene. Yeah. But the one that they had out there wasn't. I
felt like it was having their two contrasting styles right there in the same room together was kind of fun. And And I mean the whole Chevy Chase Bill Murray thing, where Bill Murray basically took over for Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live. It's sort of having, there's a passing of the torch sort of thing. But you mentioned that Bill Murray punched Chevy Chase.
Yeah, I wanted to find, and I will make you watch that scene later, but because it is available somewhere, where Bill Murray came on a year after Chevy Chase, and Bill Murray, like, having heard a lot of the other cast kind of complain how Chevy Chase had kind of stolen the spotlight. Like, remember, Chevy Chase, he did that whole line, like, I'm Chevy Chase and you're not, which was such a brilliant marketing idea because people remembered, like, oh yeah, Chevy Chase is on there, where they really maybe wouldn't have known the other cast member's name. And he kind of rolled with that and kind of made himself the star of the show.
Plus, he's really tall and good looking.
He's tall and good looking, deserved. Why not? Like, why not hang
if
your
you're going to make
tent on
somebody
that?
a movie star from the Saturday Night Live cast, it's going to be Chevy Chase because he looks the part.
He does. I mean, he's it wasn't undeserved, but Bill Murray kind of famously punched him in the face seconds before he was to go on stage. I think he said something about his wife or something, and I'm sure it was really witty. If I ever get a time machine, I want to be in that room and watch that.
All those sketches begin with Chevy Chase coming into the room and knocking everything over, right? So I guess it doesn't really matter. You could have just stumbled in, and you wouldn't even know the difference.
You wouldn't know, but I remember they pinpointed what scene it was on that Saturday Night Live. And he comes out, and he kind of looks a little dazed, but then he's just such a professional. He just keeps on going. He can get punched a lot. So they were professionals on the set. They definitely, will put aside our beef, and we'll do this. But it felt more, like when people put toddlers in a room and they're like, oh, they're playing together. They're not. They're like parallel playing. We're like,
that's exactly how that scene plays out. Where they're both kind of doing their shtick, and they're not. I mean, that's even it's sort of written into that scene where they're like at cross purposes and not really interacting with each other. But it's sort of, I guess that's how you have to get those two guys in the same room together.
And if you just hope if the orbit was in the same place. But I think they both definitely were characters that weren't on the same plane as other people. But yeah, I would have liked to see more from that. But
Chevy Chase can be really funny. Like in Fletch, for example, and in Caddyshack, I really like his Thai character in that. I like the confident Chevy that's willing to fuck with people, and I don't like his Clark Griswold character very much. I have to say, I don't like him as a doofus so much.
Yeah, he definitely needs to play the smartest person in the room,
or even if he's not, thinks he is.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of ego in play, and I mean, he's an icon for that.
I love Chevy Chase before I loved any of those other guys from Under the Rainbow. Do you remember that one?
No.
About the making of Wizard of Oz, and the midgets go crazy, and it was one of Carrie Fisher's first movies after, I guess after Blues Brothers, after Star Wars.
Yeah.
And
no, I've never.
You should it's legendarily bad, but I legitimately loved it as a kid, and I've watched it since, and I sort of understand why it's Golden Turkey worthy, or
is that the Ishtar, very ambitious, but
it's I don't know, it's great, but anyway.
Yeah.
That and Oh Heavenly Dog. Do you remember that one where Chevy Chase is a private eye and he dies and comes back as Benji?
Yeah, I do remember that one.
So yeah, he was my guy for since way back since I was 6 years old or something.
He's worthy, I think, of being a hero. I think I have a lot of affection for him. Even with the latest Community, that sort of and I feel a lot of it his kind of troubles started because he was throwing himself all in for a bit. He was, developed a drug problem to kind of mask the pain of doing pratfalls and doing, falling downstairs just to get a laugh.
Well, you're talking about Chevy or his character on the show?
Chevy Chase in real life.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually did get to see him one time. I was a kid. We were doing the tour of Universal Studio. And the tour guide was like, oh, and you may see some celebrities. And we all turned around. And this really tall guy with a dimple in his chin also turns around and is like, "Oh, who's a celebrity?" Ugh. And he was like, "Oh, I'm Chevy Chase." He didn't say that, but he kind of did that little move. And then he kind of just disappeared, and that was kind of fun. Like, I like to think that he did that on schedule. Like, that was part of the tour for a while, where, like, he, wanted to get a little bit of attention.
Depending on what point it was in his career, that may have been part of his job.
This is probably, like, 91, 92.
Oh, yeah, he was doing nothing. Oh, well, Christmas Vacation was right around.
Yeah, that was still
People
pretty
loved that
big.
movie.
Didn't he have that talk show around that time, maybe?
The legendarily bad talk show.
Yeah, it lasted, like, 3-4 episodes, but I was rooting for him. But so that was like a highlight of my childhood, kind of seeing him live and do a little bit and then disappear. But and he was great as Ty in this. I think he definitely does that sort of it's an individual versus authority kind of thing. Like, he is has some great lines. Bart, one of my favorite jokes. Yeah, we should.
I'm just making sure we're still recording here.
And
we are, yeah.
It's still recording?
Yeah.
Anyway, Bart, one of my favorite jokes that Chevy Chase does is calling people by the wrong name, like, constantly. Like, that always gets me, and I feel like he's used that gag. It's such a good...
Mitch Cumstein gets me every time.
Wait, is that from...
That's from Caddyshack, where he says, "You know who said that?" "No, my roommate, Mitch Cumstein."
Oh, I totally missed that. But that, no, that's great. He has some really great lines.
Well, and he calls Danny every name besides Danny.
Yeah, besides Danny. Like, that makes me laugh.
But that's the charm of Fletch, too, and he's just making up names.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. That's what I like to see him do.
Yeah, I know he's a lovable asshole. I think he does.
He doesn't have any pratfalls in Caddyshack, though. So that's the other thing he's famous for. He's sort of working at these two extremes, sort of this bumbling idiot and the like overconfident, handsome guy who knows that everybody wants him or wants to be him sort of guy.
Yeah, he's trying to have it both ways. I think there's a whole subplot in there. He has this whole thing about, I think maybe his dad had recently died in that. He had, not, like, I think the character. Like, he had this whole,
yeah, right.
Like, I felt like there was stuff that's like, it's a comedy. They don't need to go into that. But, one of my
My dad always hated you. So there is, like, one reference to his father.
Yeah, like how his dad grew up with them, and he was like, and, all right, here's my other theory. What if Ty brought in Rodney Dangerfield as an agent of chaos? Like, Ty owes all these lumber yards, Al's building all these condos and his real estate. Like, there was a scene when they were playing pool where he just kind of gives Rodney Dangerfield, like, this really, like, kind of sly, like, handshake when they walk in, like, a very familiar. So, I mean, in my...
Where can we find the 4-hour cut of Caddyshack?
Yeah, I want to go through it, like, Zapruder film style, where... Why don't we re-edit this movie? We can get all of that footage.
Where's the... when is the golden edition going to come out on Blu-ray?
Yeah, maybe, like, the 50th. And I guess, so that was, like, one of my theories. My other theory is that, the guy who's the head of the Caddyshack, he's a bookie. Carl is... his actual brother.
Brian Doyle Murray.
And I think he's one of the writers.
Yeah, he was one of the 3 writers.
Yeah.
And, so it's Harold Ramis, Doug Kenny, and Brian Doyle Murray who wrote the movie.
And someone whose name sounds like Lemonade, but it's not Lemonade, also did it. And he was part of the whole, I think he might have wrote Animal House, too. But yeah, so it was 4 guys.
Or was it... No. Yeah, it was Harold Ramis who directed it. Maybe he didn't write... Maybe he didn't co-write it.
Yeah, it was Harold Ramis's, like, first film. He had never directed before. And I think he called the movie whatever the budget was for that was like, oh, it's like film school for $2 million, like, or something. Because they didn't know. I think there was a scene in the biopic where they're on, like, scene 48 of, like, a very simple... some of the other scenes were really just improv greats. Like, Bill Murray was like, give me a row of mums. I got this. I think they shot him for like 3 hours.
Well, the name of his book, Cinderella Story, was
from that,
based on that scene. And that's great. I mean, I think, when it's just Bill Murray solo, just winging it, the movie's great. When it's just Rodney Dangerfield shooting off one-liner after another, it's great.
Yeah.
Like any of these comics, when they're doing their thing, stuff that probably wasn't written down, stuff that Doug Kenny had nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
That was the funny stuff.
Yeah,
so no wonder he didn't. No wonder he didn't like the movie.
Yeah, it was none of his stuff. It was all the improv. And you wonder if, like, Christopher Guest, you know, he was part of that. If he kind of learned a thing or two. How much later did he do Spinal Tap?
Was that 90? Well, I mean, 82? So it was a couple years, 83,
Couple
probably 3 years later.
Yeah. But, you know, where he kind of learned how to corral that and, you know, get the genius within a story frame, which is really interesting. But it is really vignettes, and famously they had that stupid gopher that they had someone from Lucasfilm. I think they tried to get the Henson studio to do it or someone, and they had to have some kind of device to tie it all together.
Although, I mean, that's, yeah. So much of Bill Murray's comedy is about that gopher, though.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm sorry the gopher's there, but the actual animatronic gopher is is pretty sorry.
It
not
is
very funny.
Well, and it shows how like they did better lighting and better film stock for the gopher, so it does kind of make the other parts of the movie look a little crappier. The whole yacht club, that whole scene didn't need to be in there.
No.
Like that, like I felt was kind of.
But all the 80s sex comedies that came in the wake of Animal House and Caddyshack, like that, they all felt like they needed that scene.
Yeah.
The yacht club scene.
Yeah.
In in their movie. Like, it's not, you haven't made a sex comedy without the really stupid yacht club scene.
Yeah, they almost need it. Even I think even like ski movies during that time had a yacht club scene. It was really like nonsensical. But what else was the other a lot of loose vignettes. I think originally the story was supposed to be about the caddies. It was supposed to be about Danny looking for a role model.
And the stuff with Danny is likable.
Yeah.
It's pretty ignorable, but it's also not terrible.
Just a common thread, but I mean, he definitely, if it was intended, you could see where there was another movie there where his story mattered, but it was a little, like, low stake for him, like, felt like he was constantly, like, put in the hands of, like, the 1%. I think his whole tactic of going after Judge Smalls, trying to get the scholarship, he could have gone to Rodney Dangerfield, like, very easily. Like, he could have befriended him and probably gotten, like, 5 years of college out of him or something. Or
yeah. But, you had to have some kind of a plot for this movie, and for him to suck up to the asshole was the plot of the movie, essentially.
And I think that was something that Bill Murray had said, like, he had a brother that definitely tried to do that, like, worked in the pro shop, would suck up, would find a way. So that was, like, a very personal part of the story and something that was kind of closer to true life. How about all those kids in Danny's, like, house? Remember that?
Oh yeah, that didn't really come into play after that first scene.
Yeah,
I didn't even really remember how many brothers and sisters he had.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I guess it shows that he's from the wrong side of the tracks and he doesn't have a lot of money. But.
And it was supposed to be like that was, I guess, what the Murray family was like.
Oh,
yeah, that they were just crawling.
There's another Murray brother, right? There's Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray, and there's one other.
Yeah, there's another, and he's a great one too. He's like my third favorite.
Who's the one in Groundhog Day who's at the one who's in the top hat who's?
That's Brian Doyle Murray.
That's Brian Doyle
There's
Murray.
one that's on Mad Men. He's a character there. He was also in speaking of another 80s yacht movie. He was in that John Cusack yacht movie. He was always kind of like the third friend.
One Crazy Summer.
Yeah.
Oh, Moving Violations.
Yes.
Whatever his name was, he was the star of that
one.
He was young, so he was younger.
He was Freddie in Mad Men. The ad exec that would get drunk and he brought like Peggy up. That one. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't watch that much Mad Men, but I do. I think I watched the first season and remember Freddie. Yeah,
he was in that because I'd always see them like, oh, that's Bill Murray's brother. That's interesting. So yeah, there are a couple Murrays out there, and they're all great. Like, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a bad Murray.
Brian Doyle Murray was particularly unfunny in this movie, though, I thought he tried to give himself some funny business, and it never really played. Yeah,
because he was like he didn't have much of a backstory. He was like a bookie. He had some good physical comedy of at that last crucial scene.
We're looking through the bushes.
That was great, but that was more... I want to circle back on how much I love Spalding too, so like remind me of that. So he did have some good physical
Even without
comedy.
the duties. All right, go ahead. He
But
had some
the
good. Go
duties
ahead.
scene-
Go
all right,
ahead.
it was
No,
a
go
Spalding.
ahead.
All right, okay, so I just I think Brian Doyle Murray. He had some great physical comedy, but I think he was too busy writing the movie. I think he was kind of maybe purposely cut himself out. It was definitely less Caddy centric, and maybe if it had been more Caddy, centric, he would have had more time. But no, yeah, he could have been funnier. But
Was there another Murray involved in Saturday Night Live too? I thought, was Brian Doyle Murray a writer on Saturday Night Live, or
he may have been. I know he was definitely part of like Wayne's World. He was very famously like the guy who owned the video game company, and he was in a few of that. But no,
I would only recognize the Murray brothers when I was like, "Hey, that guy kind of looks like Bill Murray," and
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh, that's Bill
if
Murray's
you
brother."
just look at their eyes, that's just definitely what you see. But yeah, I like the Murray brothers. Spalding, I love Spalding. Like I think he's sort of like the low key hero of that movie.
The scene where he's picking up drinks at the club, and he drinks the one with the cigarette,
Yeah.
and pukes in the
car.
Yeah, I mean
has-
that for me watching this movie as a kid. I mean that was definitely memorable. I mean, I loved the Gopher as a kid too.
Yeah,
But
the Gopher was like a highlight for me as a kid. And,
but that doesn't play anymore. The Spalding still plays.
Spalding is fun, and I think again another defensive measure. I try to think of Trump Jr. as a Spalding character, and it just makes me get through my day better because I'm like, aw. And I also like to order drive-through a la Spalding. I'll say like, I want a French fry, I want a cheeseburger. And I just kind of do that. I go on for about 5 minutes. And no one ever tells me you'll get nothing and like it. But
Lacey, I thought, was surprisingly multi-dimensional. She's the hot girl in the movie. Like you've got the girlfriend and you've got the hot girl.
Yeah, the Irish girlfriend who it seems like a fake accent, but it's a real accent. But very, get your butter.
Yeah, you can't even place the accent at first. I thought she's supposed to be a Polish immigrant or something. But then you realize eventually, Maggie, she's Irish. And,
it takes a while to kind of put it in, but it seemed Lacey. I really the way I was thinking of it, like. I had read some interviews with her, and there were some really problematic scenes where she was supposed to do a Playboy spread, and Harold Ramis did go to her rescue and was like, "You don't have to do this."
See, I just assumed, I don't know the actress's name or what her story is. I just assumed she was pulled from the Playboy Mansion to be in this movie.
She seems kind of like cheesecakey, and I think when she does get kind of likable. It's when she's improvising, the whole scene with Chevy Chase with the oil, she had no idea that was happening, so they were pulling real reactions from her, and that's where she got a little less, where she got more likable, and also she's just a girl getting hurt. She didn't want to be there. She wanted to be in Manhattan doing sophisticated things, so she's just running through that whole country club.
And there's no judgment either.
No.
She's sleeping around with whoever she wants to, and
she's
who cares?
Getting hers.
It's just
and no point are Danny and Ty. They don't pull any. It's they're very woke when it comes to that stuff. And I just like her kind of little shrug where she gets Danny in all that trouble when her uncle the judge catches them, and she just sort of just shrugs. Right, it really is no big deal.
Yeah. I didn't force you into this.
Yeah, So, I did kind of, I liked her. I thought she was, kind of...
that was one thing that surprised me on this rewatch, that the token, the cheesecake in the movie, the sex part of the sex comedy was just, there for boobs, and that's it. But she's more than that.
No.
I was surprised. It was fairly multi-dimensional character.
She was great, and there was also some, I think, are there any other women? Oh, and I forgot one of my favorite lines from Rodney Dangerfield to Judge Snell's wife. Do you want to make $14 the hard way? That. Again, I cackled over that. I think that still holds up, and I will find a way to shoehorn that into.
And speaking of that, I knew I'd written down a Rodney Dangerfield line
Yeah.
I liked, and I wanted to point out the "did somebody step on a duck" line, because in general I hate fart humor. It's the lowest form of comedy.
Yeah.
And that's just the way he handles his flatulence in that scene it made me laugh.
I grew up in a household that very much did not support fart humor. But if it had to happen, we used the duck line, and it got a laugh. Like, that was, that and the kill all the gophers line. I don't know, my dad would do that Scottish accent every time we went by a golf course.
I also didn't realize that groundskeeper Willie was inspired by that character in Caddyshack. Well, I mean, I had to be, right?
Had to have been. Like, I don't see
I never made the connection, but it's got to be.
Yeah. I like that they did a lot of good Scottish stereotypes in that, and I think, like, probably one of the darkest lines is when the groundskeeper is talking to Carl about killing all the gophers. And Carl is taking it as, let's kill the people who are golfing.
The golfers, yeah.
And when he puts it together as and he's fine with it. Like, he doesn't he's not really objecting. But then once he clarifies that it's rodents he has to kill, he's like, oh, we don't even have to have a reason. Like, that killed me. Like, that was like a...
Well, it's what Bill Murray is going for in that movie is a little obscure. I mean, I know he's supposed to be a shell-shocked Vietnam vet, but he's also, I mean, is that really what's going on with his character?
He's definitely on some lists. Like, he's definitely, like, not allowed to live near a school, which is probably why he lives, like, in a shack. Like, like the whole scene where Mrs. Haverham, like, who is it? That little monkey that she's, like he's straight up stalking.
Oh, when he's
one of the 60 plus golfers are on there. I mean, I would feel uncomfortable seeing that character on children. I don't think
although clearly children is not his
no, not his thing, but just in general, I don't think he would have, like, I wouldn't want, I wouldn't, I'm not saying that, I'm not, but, he's definitely on some lists. He definitely can't live in certain areas. But there's a lot of darkness. I think they do play around with the whole Vietnam. They play, like, the Battle of the Green Berets, and he's going through some stuff. Mm-hmm. Definitely. What is it? The little fun fact. Speaking of kind of weird, depressive darkness, the gopher, the little, like, clicky noise for it, they use the same sound they used for Flipper.
Oh,
for that,
yeah,
so it's
I
actually
can
the
hear
dolphin
that.
noise.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets fun. From that documentary, The Cove, Flipper died of, like, severe depression. Apparently, like, dolphins just choose to kill themselves by, like, not breathing anymore, and that's how Flipper went. So, like, we're hearing the sounds of a deeply depressed dolphin whenever we're hearing the gopher. So, I kind of talk about sucking the joy out of a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun to know.
Yeah, although... Do we know that Flipper actually made those noises himself? Like, to watch a Flipper episode, it always seems like it's done in post. But he's a talented dolphin, clearly. So maybe he was doing his own lines. Maybe while during shooting.
I was trying to do a direct line from that, but no, I'm sure could have been a stunt dolphin doing the noise. Could not even have been the noise. But I liked how they reused it. What was the other thing? Oh, the whole Esther Williams scene before the duty scene, like. I was thinking...
Why was that there?
Yeah, like, it must have taken so much time to coordinate, like, so much work for me to kind of, like, get up and get a drink during it, like, not really enjoy it.
I have to believe the only reason that it made the final cut was that they were like, we spent days on this, yeah. we gotta keep it in.
We have to put it in. What was the other dark thing? Oh, Ted Knight talking about sentencing people to the gas chamber for their own good, like that, like, just a bunch of stuff I kind of missed, but
Ted Knight, he nailed that character. Like, he's definitely, he's not hilarious, but he definitely brings to the judge what he needs to bring. Like, you hate him, and
he's a grown up in that movie, definitely, and he inspired the Fresca drinks that we are drinking right now. We wouldn't have. Oh, and one of my favorite lines for him. I had an intern once who was telling me about, like, maybe not being able to afford college. So I, just not even thinking, said, well, the world needs ditch diggers, too. Uh-huh. And got a little bit of tear from that. Yeah. And I had to explain, like,
that was a great, that was a written line that was really good.
Yeah.
So there's an example of it it wasn't just the improv that was funny.
He did that really well. He spat that out. So I'm trying to think. So I think we went into this because we wanted to see, will this sacred cow of comedy, beloved, does it hold up in a comedy sense? Or is it just coasting on nostalgia?
Well, the interesting thing is that it's even in A Futile and Stupid Gesture, where Caddyshack was not the gigantic hit that they wanted it to be, but Martin Mull, I don't know how we talk about this without spoiling but he's posthumously telling Doug Kenny that, but in the future people love Caddyshack. Yeah. So there was a time where it wasn't necessarily the most popular movie, but it gained in popularity.
Gained a cult following.
And now it's a classic, but does it deserve to be?
Yeah, and they say people get in the biodoc, they say people get kind of annoying about it. And it's kind of true. Like, you see lines pop up in the top 100 comedies. It's listed, it's in the pantheon of comedies. And I think deservedly so. Definitely, I felt it held up. I definitely laughed.
The performances do. Yeah, I mean, it's not undeserving of its reputation. It's a shitty movie, which really surprised me. But the people in it are really funny.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, I don't think it's genius. There's some things I feel like sometimes I'll watch Peter Sellers, or I'll watch different things. And I'm oh, that's just genius. It's watching a well-tuned clock. Everything is working together. Everything is, Arrested Development, I would say, is another one of that where it's
yeah, well, there's comedy that's constructed, and there's comedy that just happens, and this is comedy that just happens.
Yeah, it's if you put how many monkeys in a room, eventually they're going to type out. You put a camera on any of these people, and you have a bunch of funny, smart people around it, accidentally there's going to be some laugh. It's, something's funny going to come out of it. But,
and, I mean, Carl is iconic. Bill Murray's Carl is deservedly an iconic character in the pantheon of comic characters.
Yeah.
I mean, even, not everything out of his mouth is incredibly funny, but enough of it is. And he's just, it's a singular character. The movie deserves to be remembered for Carl.
Yeah.
Rodney Dangerfield is just doing his Rodney Dangerfield shtick, so no matter what movie you're watching with him, you're kind of getting the same thing.
And I had recently read up on a lot of Rodney Dangerfield. Amazing guy. I mean, he'd never acted before, but he had been a father figure to all of these comics. I mean, that was kind of what he was known for. He was just so well liked, total sweetheart of a guy. Apparently he had never been hugged once as a kid. He had some really tough things going on.
Are you sure that's not just a bit?
No, he just his parents were real bad. He had but he was just a father figure to a lot of people. And so I mean, I think this was it was a great use of him, definitely. And I think if Harold Ramis hadn't been so used to getting things out of comics, I don't know if another director would have been able to get that out of him as well. But they also do not to get in his way. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, don't give him lines to deliver. Just have him do his thing.
Yeah. His dance. Oh my
yeah.
God, I want to do that dance. Some great journey with him. But any other standouts? Anyone else you really loved?
Yeah, I mean, Chevy. Who else is there? I guess of the pros in that movie, you've got Chevy, Rodney, and Bill.
Bill, yeah.
And Ted Knight was, had a career.
His final movie? Was that his?
He must have done a bunch of. Well, maybe his final movie, but he was in. What's the? One Day at a Time.
Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Well, but there was the '80s show with Schneider as the handyman.
Was he in One Day at a Time? Huh?
Yeah, he was. He had a major role in that, and that definitely went well past Ken. Yeah. So he's on TV after this.
Yeah, he must have done some stuff after that. I'm just trying to think of what else.
But maybe
was he in Benson? Was he in?
I never thought of him as a movie star. I just thought of Caddyshack as his one movie. But
yeah, I'm trying to think. Doug Kenny had a little cameo in there.
Oh yeah, I was looking for him, but I couldn't.
Yeah, he was at Rodney Dangerfield's table. It was only because he looked so much like Will Forte. It was the kind of thinning hair and the glasses. It was I had to pause it to kind of look for it. I'm trying to think if there are any others. I mean, I definitely laughed, but it also, at this point, it was, it's just so ingrained, and a lot of it was nostalgia. Just remembering quoting it as a kid, like it coasted on a lot of that. But I say it holds up. I say I wouldn't be afraid. Like I was a little afraid to watch it. Like I didn't want to like ruin it. But I haven't seen it in like 10 years. But
yeah, I don't have a huge connection to the movie, so I kind of got out of it what I expected to get out of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't ruined for me, but I also realized that it's not quite the classic that it maybe its reputation would suggest. But,
yeah. Do you ever watch the sequel?
No, never. Jackie Mason, I know, is
was that who was that? I was trying to think. I don't think I feel like it had like a fake Bill Murray, or was Bill Murray in it?
I don't think so.
I vaguely remember there being a sequel.
Was there any? Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see it,
Yeah.
so and I know it's supposed to be terrible.
Yeah, no, life's too short to watch those crappy sequels. Yeah, and I mean, golfers, of course,
Love that movie.
they love it so much, and it's sort of like they don't get it. It's sort of like when teenagers would laugh at Beavis and Butthead and they didn't understand. They're like, "Oh no, you're
being made fun of.
This is yeah."
But that's, a lot of comedy is expecting the audience to laugh at themselves a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I guess
right?
maybe that's a little like more hard-headed of me, but no, I think there's a lot good there. Do you golf?
I don't golf.
So,
I have golfed, but I don't.
A good walk spoiled, you know what it is. Yeah, so I didn't really connect it with it that way, but definitely.
Well, it sounds like we're winding down.
Yeah.
Do you have a game prepared for us?
I was thinking of a game. I was hoping I'd think of a game by the end of this, but I was so engaged with talking. But what I'd like to do is maybe stump you with a movie.
Okay.
All right. So famously, I think there was an article in the LA Times about you recently saying that you could like guess a movie within a few words.
It might have been a little bit of a hyperbole, but I'm pretty good at that game.
I feel like no, I think you can live up to the hype. So all right, let me think of a movie. Okay. All right, this movie was done in the 70s. Mm-hmm. It's starring a man and a woman, and both of them had gold records or had hit records, and it was a remake of a movie from the 40s.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips.
Mm-mm. And from different eras, like when different genres of music, so that might. No, I realized like this dead air. I just thought.
Oh, Heaven Can Wait was a remake.
Who had the hit records in Heaven Can Wait?
Charles Grodin.
When did Charles Grodin have a hit record? That's just nonsense. This is not you.
Okay. I'm good at movie trivia that it's self-contained. It's within the movies themselves. If I have to go outside of the movie, like things that were happening in people's lives.
Maybe it was a little hard. I was thinking of A Star Is Born.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I realized like that because normally you're so good at that, but I feel like I made you feel terrible, and now I feel terrible for maybe making you feel terrible.
And plus, of all the versions of A Star Is Born, who remembers the Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand one?
Yeah, I think I was just looking at Chris Christopherson, so that was in my head, and I was gonna make like a Blade sort of, but No, we'll think of a good game.
I was trying to come up with a game, and I had like a Mad Lib style joke generator that we could come up with.
That's a hard no. That's no.
Well, but mostly it was just so we could come up with punchlines to a random joke. I was trying to, a setup for a joke.
Yeah.
We come up with punchlines, and then we analyze. We figure out whose is better first of all, but then we talk about what the joke was.
Oh, like analyze. Yeah, okay.
Right. But I couldn't. I mean, I tried out my random joke generator, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Is that like the random insult generator?
Yeah, if you do that Mad Lib style.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about taking David Letterman top 10 subjects without looking at any of the jokes and having us come up with our own and figuring out which one of us did a better job coming up with one of the top tens.
We
but
almost need like a third part. Like I feel like that could get vicious. Like
I get judging.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like either we both get the points or neither of us do. So there's either a clear winner or nobody wins, sort of thing. But I'd like to work something like that into.
Yeah. No, and I mean, there's a lot of games like the Leonard Maltin game. You can guess like 3. I think we played Celebrity before, and that was really fun. Where you have to kind of guess, but I don't know.
I'd like it to be more comedy oriented though, because I know movies, and I'm gonna keep bringing this back to movies no matter what, because that's what I'm interested in. I was hoping that you would bring in more TV and actual like stand up routines and comedy records and those sorts of things.
I mean, because that's where our wheelhouses are, definitely. Like I think we know, and I can definitely like analyze like till it's not fun anymore, like the origin of the comedy, what it came from, and I think you definitely know like movie side, like you know that. So this is really riveting stuff right here. So
yeah, well, I wanted the discussion to be part of the podcast.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
So
I could.
We'll think about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we could really we could have some really fun games. Of course, you know my favorite game.
The hot button game?
Yeah. This is for the listening audience. This is where, before the show starts, and I've forced people to play this before, and it's really fun. It definitely hasn't ended any friendships, but you write down a topic that you're personally very sensitive about, and you keep it in your pocket. And throughout the discussion, you try to guess what is a very sensitive subject. And if you harp on it, like, say if it's that, you were adopted or something like that, and you have that written on the piece of paper, then the other person wins the game. So it's kind of a fun...
Well, I can tell you that what I would put in my pocket was maybe not my most sensitive issue, just something that I'm kind of uncomfortable about. Right. So maybe I could play that game.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Because if it was truly the thing that I just became completely incapacitated if you started talking about it, I would not put that in my pocket.
See, that's the fun part though, when you just completely sent someone into a full blown panic attack. But I think that's good to know when you're playing the game, to be like, okay, like don't go for the jugular, go for something like minor, and you just bring up all this stuff. But that, I don't know if that game, maybe that's...
We should save it for guests when we start having guests on the show.
That's fun. Definitely. I think we have Andrew Dice Clay lined up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we've made a few phone calls, so keep an ear out for that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so let's end it there.
Yeah, I think we have some exciting ideas.